Emma James of Media Watch on the other side of our studio. Good evening.
Hi there.
Now then, you've been looking at some of the reactions to the end of Robert Mueller's investigation into whether or not there was collusion between Russia and the Trump election campaign.
Yes, absolutely. And it does seem that no one's minds have really been changed by the release of a summary of what Robert Mueller came up with after 2 years of investigation. Basically, if you believe there was collusion, you probably still do. And if you thought that it was all made up, then you're probably feeling vindicated right now, as is the United States President Donald Trump, of course, who tweeted, unsurprisingly, no collusion, no obstruction, complete and total exoneration. Keep America great. Now, it's not entirely true to say it's total exoneration, because the Attorney General did go to great lengths to express the fact that there was a slight question mark over the issue of obstruction of justice. William Barr made it clear that while Mueller's report does not conclude that the president committed a crime, it also does not exonerate him. So Donald Trump very much spinning it as entirely positive, but that's not necessarily entirely the case. And it's the reason why a lot of people, obviously the Democrats included, want to see the full report. We're seeing the hashtag release the full Mueller report a great deal on Twitter today. This Twitter user saying, we didn't pay for the Barr report, William Barr, of course, the Attorney General, we paid for the Mueller report, because nobody has seen the Robert Mueller report other than William Barr. He's just given us this 4-page synopsis of what he had to say. And one of the questions that people have raised, including the Washington Post, is the fact that he's created this synopsis, this summary, after just 48 hours. Now, bearing in mind, this was a 2-year-long investigation. So some people wondering just how much we should take this at face value, and a lot of people feeling that we should be seeing the full report, including, of course, the Washington Post, who say that the findings are questionable. There were, of course, questions over Barr because he was believed to be very much Trump's man when he was brought in February, and so lots of questions, including in Politico. It's a very, very interesting article worth taking a look at, where they've spoken to a lot of different legal minds about their take on it, and it really is a huge range from he's been legally exonerated but not yet in the court of public opinion, to others saying the lack of findings of actual guilt after such an exhaustive investigation cannot simply be brushed aside. Others, though, asking questions about the media's role in this whole debacle. Glenn Greenwald, journalist with The Intercept, has gone on record as saying that this is basically like when we discovered there were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq in 2003. He says it's time to face the truth. The media got the story wrong. All this time there was no evidence for it. It was just a conspiracy theory.
And that one will continue. The shenanigans go on. Now then, an elderly yellow vest protester here in France was injured during the protests this weekend, and some have been shocked by a rather, I suppose, unsympathetic reaction by President Macron.
Extremely unsympathetic, I think it's fair to say. Geneviève Leguay, who is 73 years old, was on the streets of Nice protesting. She describes herself as an anti-globalist protester. She was out in Nice on Saturday, carrying a rainbow-coloured flag, bearing the word peace on it. This is her being interviewed shortly before the incident. During this interview, she says, I think we touched the hearts of the riot police when we urged them to respect women and grandmothers. Well, unfortunately, it appears that really was not the case. This is the image from a little bit later on, where she had been knocked over during a police charge. She had smacked her head on that post that you can see in the image there.
And that's with the riot police officer just stepping over her body.
Absolutely. They did then group around her,
Sure.
but she had suffered a fractured skull and bleeding on the brain. This is the movement that actually caused the damage. You can see the police pushing in. The reason they're doing that is because the protesters were heading for an area where they were not allowed to actually demonstrate. And that is something that Emmanuel Macron, the French president, felt vindicated his comments, but he has been roundly criticised because when he spoke to Nice Matin, the local newspaper, he said, if you're fragile, you don't go to places that are declared off limits where you can get pushed around. You don't put yourself in a situation like that. He said he regretted what happened, but that you have to behave responsibly. Now, unbelievably, after wishing her well, he also went on to say, I also wish her more wisdom. And Pauline Bock, a journalist, says that he manages to sound contemptuous even when wishing somebody well. So a lot of people very shocked, including her family, her daughter, saying that perhaps we should be asking the question about who it is that really needs some wisdom right now.
Emma James, thank you very much indeed. Thanks.